Next slide.
Sir, for palatal indexing calculation, we take the length of the palatal shelf and we take the width of the cleft, and we divide the palatal shelf with the cleft, and we get the palatal index, sir.
टूटियां
Put this,
I hope this
नहीं
is.
नहीं इसके अंदर
I hope this
सेट हो
is in
जाएगा,
another patient.
ऐसे घूम जाएगा.
this is another
ठीक,
patient.
मैं
It's
इधर
not this
लगा
patient. I
लूंगी.
just put this photo
Somebody's
just
mic
for
is
this.
on and there is a kid talking. Can someone please
बिल्कुल,
mute their
मैं
mic?
पूरे टाइम
Yeah.
टच नहीं दिखा रही होती.
Somebody please put off their mic. Yeah. All right. So, Dr. Mishra,
Yes, sir.
these measurements are taken for what purpose? What do they
Sir,
really help to achieve?
sir,
If you're doing it as part of a protocol that you're taking measurements in all cases, that's fine. Does it in any way influence the type of surgery, the kind of result that you're going to give? Or the
not much,
prognosis?
sir. We just tell the severity of the cleft, sir. And we can,
How can you say?
sir, if palatal index is 0.2, sir, we call as the minor kind, sir. 0.2 to 0.4, sir, that is moderate, and more than 0.4, that is severe, sir. Let's
All right.
divide
I'll ask you one simple question. These
Yes, sir.
black dots that you're showing.
Mishra,
Yes, sir.
your screen is not visible.
No, I can see it.
Others are
Hello?
not, could not see, sir.
I can see the diagram.
Yeah, we are able to see it, madam.
I can see the palette. I can see her markings and I can see those black dots.
We have to actually just go to her screen and then pin it. In Meet, we have to actually, there'll be one pin mark coming, just press it, her screen will be stuck to your thing. Okay, I think we'll continue.
Okay. Yeah. Now, madam, the biggest flaw in
Yes,
any
sir.
such measurements in cleft palate are these lines on the same plane. They are not in the same plane. Number one, you are taking a width of a cleft which is basically soft tissue. You have no control on the muscular elements that are pulling this. Palatal measurements are very difficult because the edge of the cleft and those black dots that you are placed on the sides, they are not in the same plane because the palatal shells invariably are oriented slightly going superiorly. So you are not going to get a true estimate. Where is this methodology of classifying clefts according to the width given?
Sir, in one article, what definition of the white cleft, sir? It was told that if more than 40% is there, then it is called as the white cleft, sir. So
No,
I read
first of
sir.
all, I think that as far as exams are concerned, as far
Yes,
as you should avoid the terms mild, moderate, and severe clefts because
Yes,
they are not useful for any form of classification. Two, they do not affect the kind of surgery that you're going to do. And number three, nothing is going to change. I mean, if you're told that tomorrow your resident tells you, madam, we have kept a wide cleft, and madam, we have kept a narrow cleft, is your approach going to change?
No, sir.
Exactly. My point is that palatal measurements, we did a study because we did the use of the buccal flap, but they were all uniplanar measurements. Okay, they were all uniplanar measurements where both the structures, the width of whatever we were measuring was in the same plane. Here, your lateral marks, just, probably this the region of the hamulus maybe, and that is at one plane. Now the palate shelves are curving upwards and the edge of the palate is at a different plane. How can you take a measurement across space like this? It is not at all accurate. All right, so as far as concerned, I don't think any examiner is really interested in what is the definition. Suppose you have a cleft that is so wide that you can see clearly that the palatal shelves itself are very thin, and you can see that the width of the cleft is probably more than the width of the palatal shelves combined. You may give a statement that this is a very wide cleft for this reason. This kind of measurement, I'm very sorry to say, is not at all accurate. All right, and it's
Yes,
frankly speaking not relevant for a cleft palate discussion. So I suggest move on to the next slide. But this is of course from a different patient because I can see the vomer fused on
No,
one side.
it's not for the same patient, sir.
Yeah, okay, I got the point. All right.
So, based on the history and examination, my diagnosis is group 3 bilateral cleft palate with nasal deformity with operated cleft lip without any apparent syndromic association.
All right. You should also mention the word. Yeah, you have said. Well, you can say a sporadic cleft palate because there is no precursor or non-consanguineous patients, that usual crap that people like. It doesn't matter. You have achieved this now. All right. What is your plan?
Sir, the treatment is start with the management, sir. In management, I will do two kind of investigation. First is to rule out any associated problem, and second is for surgical fitness. To rule out any associated problem, I'll send the patient to for ENT opinion to rule out any
Madam, stop. Don't answer mechanically. This child has already been operated for cleft lip.
Yes, sir.
So we assume that whatever investigation for other existing abnormalities and stuff like that, you will rule out.
Yes, sir.
The only thing you want to see is the child is not suffering from an active purulent otitis media.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if that is there, that needs to be treated before you do a palatal surgery. And usually, if you go to the ENT fellow, he will first treat the palate, then we'll treat the otitis media. So investigations, apart from pre-anesthetic anesthesia investigations, specifically what do you want to rule out before doing cleft palate surgery?
Sir,
don't tell me hemoglobin and all that. That's fine. What specifically you want to rule out before doing cleft palate surgery? You want to rule out fulminant upper respiratory infection.
Yes.
Okay. If the child has got repeated sore throat, you might even look for a strep smear. Okay. If the child has got too many episodes, you want to do a smear of the posterior of the throat to rule out streptococcus infection. You want to rule out purulent or suppurative otitis media. You want to rule out any active infection. That's all you need to rule out. Rest of the things are anesthesia fitness. Okay. Which I presume you will do normally as per your institution's protocol. And the patient is now ready for surgery. What will you tell the parents before you operate?
Sir, I will counsel the patient about parents about the surgery, sir, and about the post-op management, and sir, how the patient is going to be stay in hospital. And before surgery, I will send the patient for the speech assessment, just because that speech therapists can teach the patient parents about the post-op speech exercises.
All right, not strictly necessary, but fair enough. You want to get a speech sample because the child is capable of speaking a few words. It will look good if you can show the difference between the pre-op and the post-op. What is the most important thing you will tell the parents, madam? What is the most important and practical thing that you are going to tell the parents?
Sir, chances of the surgical failure and
surgical failure. Don't use such words. You have to tell them one very post-op. You expect this is a non-syndrome. If you want, you find out from the anesthetist or the surgeon who operated the cleft and find out whether there was any problem during that time. If you have access to that kind of material, otherwise you ask the parents post-operatively how many days the patient was there. They have gone through it once. They know what it is to operate a child. And a 2-year-old child is definitely a little easier to manage than a 3-month-old child. My point is, you have to tell the parents that this particular bus has already been missed. The child is 2 years old. Lot of compensatory and faulty speech mechanisms are already in place. They are not going to get corrected however brilliant a surgeon you are. This is a child who is going to need a very high degree of speech therapy following surgery. If you have missed this point, you're going to have very unhappy parents. Not yours, the child's. Because you need to tell them this should have been done before the age of 1 year. There have been several variables regarding palatal surgery. The one significant one that is across the board, like the nature of the procedure, irrespective of the surgeon, is that children operated before the age of 11-12 months generally do better before the faulty speech mechanisms are already in place. And in this child, you're already late. You are 2 years old. The child is 2 years old. So already the child is going to speak in a lot of funny way, which all these things have to be corrected. So you have to warn the parents that your speech results may not be optimal. Number one, because of the age. So keep a door of exit for yourself. They'll expect the child to start talking normally. You have to tell them may not happen. Okay, this
Yes.
child is already late. You need to give a lot of speech therapy. That's the first thing you'll tell the parents before you even touch the patient. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, go on. That is the most important. Based on, yes, you can tell them child will be here for at least 2 to 3 days, and we'll come to the rest post-operatively. We'll come to it. Keep moving.
So problem present in this case first is the parietal cleft palate. So ideal time for repair is between the 6 months to 12 months. And in this case, patient didn't turn up. So ideally, it should be done as early as possible. This patient
Will you
has,
do it tomorrow? Will you do it tomorrow?
no, sir.
Apna,
First,
apart from the fact it's a Sunday, will you? If the child comes to you today, will you operate the child tomorrow?
no, sir. First, we will rule out the after
No,
the
all that you do. How long does it take? You just check, send it to the ENT. He says ears are fine. You do the blood, hemoglobin is normal. There is high, WBC count is normal. This child is not suffering from any fever, infection, or sore throat. Will you do the case tomorrow?
Yes, sir. I will do, sir.
Good. That's the answer I wanted. Move on. Forget the short columella and all that. Tell me now problems with the palate. Everything behind the lip. I am not interested in the columella and the lip.
Okay, sir. So, sir, alveolar cleft bilaterally is present, sir. So, for this, I will use alveolar bone grafting at age of 7 to 9 years.
Hey, madam, we are still, the patient is 2 years old. All
Yes, sir,
that,
that
we'll come
understand.
to secondary management later.
Yes,
What
sir.
are you going to do now for this child?
For this child, sir, main objective of cleft palate repair is normal speech, sir, and
What?
normal speech, sir. Main objective of cleft palate repair is
Objective.
yes, sir.
Go on.
So operative techniques are divided into hard palate and short palates. And hard palate, von Langenbeck biopedical flap is there. View Wardle Kilner.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Please don't just throw names at me. Okay? Why are you talking about Vaux-Wardle-Kilner in a bilateral complete cleft? How will a Vaux-Wardle-Kilner work in this case? A Vaux-Wardle-Kilner is only for a posterior cleft where the anterior cleft is more or less fused. How are you going to do a VWK repair on this, where it's a bilateral cleft palate where the cleft is going all the way, including the alveolus?
No, sir, I'm just telling about which are options are there, but my choice will be,
there
sir,
is no option. There is no option. VWK is not an option in this patient. How can VWK be an option when the whole palate is open all the way up to the alveolus, madam? How is it an option? It is not an option. You have said you want to do, the aim is to do an anatomical and a physiological repair of the cleft starting from as far in front to the uvula. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now, in that, you have to mobilize the palatal flaps, hard palate, yes or no?
Sir?
Yes, that is not a trick question. Yes, you have to mobilize the palatal flaps.
Yes, sir.
So where are you going to take your incisions?
So my choice will be Bardash 2 flap palatoplasty, sir.
Wait. Bardax? 4
Bardash,
flap.
sir. 2 flaps, sir.
It's Bardak. Okay, Bardak. Janusz Bardak. If you want a little interesting history about him also, I can tell you. He was a guest of Stalin's Gulag, and he was released from there and then went and settled down to in the US. Bardak.
Okay, sir.
Bardak flap. See, first of all, whatever you have in the hard palate, right up to the alveolus, you have to incise.
Yes.
You have to raise the flaps. What is this 4 flap technique?
Which, sir?
You said Bardak's 4 flap
No,
technique.
sir.
No,
2
what did you
flaps.
say?
2 flaps, sir. I have not said, sir.
2 flap.
Yes.
Okay, 2 flap.
Yes, sir. 2 flap.
How? Okay, so that means you are raising the entire quantum of mucoperiosteum that is present on either side.
Yes, sir.
On either side, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, what is the anterior limit of the incision?
So anterior limit of the incision is there.
Of the flaps, yeah.
Yes, sir. The Divya is present in the sir on the palate, sir, on the mucosa. So we go till there, sir.
What? You go till where?
Sir, Divya is present in the palate side, sir. So we go
I'm
till
sorry, you are
the
not clear. What's the word you use? No, no, no. Normally, where do you take the lateral incisions on the palate?
lateral incision. We take, sir, from the we start from the maxillary tuberosity, sir.
No, no, no. I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
asking the length or the extent. I'm asking where do you take this incision? What is the demarcation for you to take the incision?
Sir, just medial to the alveolus we take, sir, on the lateral.
Medial to the.
Alveolar, sir.
So you are taking it basically at the junction of the alveolar and the palatal mucosa,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you go up in front. Excuse me. I'll just draw a diagram. Are you able to see this diagram?
No, sir, but yes, sir.
Now,
One second.
any luck?
Yeah, good.
Can you see it?
You have to go. Yeah, you have to go slightly behind, slightly backward. Some more, sir. Some more, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Now fine. Fantastic, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
Yes, sir.
Now I'll draw the incisions.
Sir, I was not able to see, sir. Sorry,
Hold
sir.
on. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
I'm. Can you see now the incisions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you tell me, laterally you are saying you're going at the junction of palatal and alveolar mucosa.
Yes, sir.
What
Me, I just
about
need-
what about the anterior most point?
So anterior most point is at the where the rugosity of the this oral mucosa ends, sir.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make. Anteriorly, you need to go take the alveolar mucosa also. Okay, because if you take an incision here and you repair the palate, it will move back. And then you're going to land up with two huge holes here, which you have no tissue left to close. So in all these cases, you must do what is known as an alveolar extension palatoplasty by actually going around the necks of the teeth. She's 2 years, so she'll have some teeth, right?
Yes, sir.
So the anterior incision, you separate it, what is called as technically is called a clavicular incision. Okay. It used to be called pericoronal, but that's not a proper term. The correct term is clavicular incision. So you take the, where you have the teeth, I'll just draw a few teeth, hold on. You see a few teeth here. Okay, so
Yes,
your
sir.
incision will go all the way
Uh,
between the necks of the teeth. And now you will be able to probably close this area, which is otherwise frightfully difficult to close. If you take your normal incision and close it, when you close it, this is going to come back and you're going to have a situation of closure like this. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now you're left with two huge gaps here and you have no
slightly
tissue left
raise
to-
the paper, sir. People asking. Raise
Now-
it up, sir. Raise it.
छोटी है क्या?
Slightly above, sir.
Sir, sir,
Now
what
it's
size
fine.
है?
Fantastic, sir.
Okay, so you see the
Yeah,
suture
yeah,
line that I have shown. You can see the suture line.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now you see those huge gaps in front.
Yes, sir.
That is what you land up with if you take incision only of the palatal mucosa. So when you're going in front, you need to get, and not only that, at the time of secondary, at the time of bone grafting, you will find you have an island of gingival mucosa, then you have scar, and then you have the palatal mucosa. You're going to find it very difficult. So when you close such cases, take as much tissue as you can get, so that when you push it back, this the deficit opening is very small. It can be closed by the gingiva from the front. All right, little complicated, more important, because you have to think of this child when you're doing secondary surgery also, like alveolar bone grafting. Okay, and you need to cover that area around the alveolus, and if you have taken an incision on the palate and moved it behind, you're going to have two holes there, and nothing you do is ever going to cover that. So to gain a little extra length, you do what is known as an alveolar extension palatoplasty. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so alveolar extension palatoplasty means you extend the incision along the clavicular necks of the teeth, and then the little extra half to 1 centimeter of tissue that you have got is going to be the most vital thing that you ever had. So that is as far as the hard palatal incisions are taken, and you take only 2 flaps. As you said, they are called Vo flaps or Bardak flaps, whatever you want to call them. You take only 2 flaps. There is no VWK and 3 flaps and all that. Now, you're going to split the vomer in the midline.
Yeah, sir. I will take the one second, sir.
How are you going to use the vomer?
Sir, I will keep the superiorly placed flap, sir. Sir, my screen is visible.
Yes, you will show. No, I cannot. It's too small. But no, you answer me. So you incise the vomer in the midline?
No, sir. I will leave a small tissue in between the vomer, sir, and I will take the superiorly based vomer flap laterally, sir.
Madam, you need bilateral. You
Yes,
need for both
bilateral.
sides, no?
Yeah, both sides, sir.
So, why don't you incise the vomer in the midline? You're going to. Are you trying to tell me that you're going to leave a thin strip of tissue on the vomer?
Yes, sir.
Why? You'll fall short. What advantage is this going to give you?
Sir, this if we leave a small tissue on the vomer, sir. Sir.
For what? For what? Leave the small tissue for what?
Sir, this will not compromise the maxillary growth later, sir. The chances of maxillary growth will be decreased. Sir.
Really? Please, that's not true. Okay? That's not true at all. People used to think that by leaving a small strip of tissue based on the anterior, on the premaxilla, that through that the entire vomer will be supplied by blood. That's not true. That's wishful thinking. You incise the vomer in the midline. My question was, you have to look. Normally the vomer is not exactly in the midline. It is closer to one side or the other. So that time, that's where you decide how much you need to bring it to this side and how much you need to this side. And you take the incision either on the midline or slightly on one side of the midline, whichever side you need a larger vomer flap. But you don't leave anything attached to the raw surface of the vomer. If you're doing it in a unit, I don't have anything to say, but it's a maneuver that has no relevance. Number 1. Number 2 is you're going to fall short of tissue. If you leave a chunk of tissue on the vomer, you're going to fall short, and you need to make sure that you close the nasal mucosa adequately without too much of tension. So if you want to leave, if you think the vomer is big enough to provide flap for both sides plus leaving a strip of tissue in the midline, go ahead, by all means. It can't do any harm. But I will, in many cases, you're going to find yourself short of tissue. Okay, so
yes,
you have taken vomerine flaps bilateral and you have sutured it to the nasal mucosa. Now, that is as far as the hard palate. What do you do for the junction of hard and soft palate? How do you close there?
Sir,
how do you close it?
Sir, my screen is visible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, sir, for the junction of hard and soft palate, sir, I will elevate the mucoperiosteal flap till greater palatine vessel, sir. And
no, that is for oral layer. I'm still on nasal layer.
Yes, sir.
The vomer starts narrowing as it goes posteriorly. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
The vomer starts narrowing, okay, as it goes posteriorly. You have reached a point where you have reached, you have elevated the vomer flaps and you have sutured it to the nasal mucosa. Now, just behind that, the nasal mucosa is still far apart and it's not coming to the midline. What do you do?
Sir, if
see at the junction. Bolo.
No, sir. Yes.
How do you close the nasal mucosa there? That is the part. Now the vomer is over. Vomer is no longer enough because it's now going upward and it's narrowing, and the vomer obviously flattens as it goes more posteriorly. Through the big body of the vomer, you've got nice flaps for you to close your nasal mucosa. But as you go posteriorly, now it's gone further away from the palate, and the two nasal mucosa are not coming together. How will you mobilize the nasal mucosa in order to close it properly?
Sir, I can give, sir, T incision anteriorly and posteriorly, sir.
Give what?
T-shaped incision, sir.
T-shaped incision on what? You have not got the question. One second. Tell me again if you're seeing it properly. I have drawn the hard palatal shelves.
1 second, sir.
Can you see this? Right. Okay. Now tell me at this point, the vomer is going to close. How are you going to close it here? How are you going to mobilize the nasal mucosa?
Sir, vomer.
This is very nice. I'm not really interested in Langenbeck technique for this case, but how will you close what are the methods you will do to close the defect? The biggest problem is the junction of hard and soft palate, right? Because previously in the hard palate, anteriorly you have the vomer, which is a good source of tissue which is available. But once the vomer ends, you have no tissue, and the nasal mucosa is not going to come easily from side to side to cover that particular gap.
Sir, for that, we can take, sir, buccal myomucosal flap, sir.
Before that, buccal myomucosal flap you keep ready, yes, but before that, can you how to mobilize the nasal mucosa? You have to understand how it is stuck. You see, if this is the cleft, these are the clefts. The nasal mucosa is going under that, and this is the edge of the hard palate. This is the soft palate. My junction of my fingers and my palm is the hard palate. Now, it's not going to come from here because it's stuck to the nasopharynx on the side. So, how will you mobilize the nasal mucosa? What is the space of Ernst?
Sir,
Your mic is muted.
Mic, sir. Am I clear, sir?
Yes.
Sir, space of Ernst is bounded by the anteriorly maxillary tuberosity, sir, and medially by the levator palatini muscle, and laterally by the pterygoid plate, sir.
Which pterygoid plate?
Sir, medial pterygoid plate, sir.
Good guess. It is space of Ernst is basically immediately medial to the medial pterygoid space, where the nasal mucosa from this is the nasal mucosa, this is the cleft palate. It now turns to form the nasopharyngeal mucosa. Are you understanding my point?
Yes, sir.
This is the free edge of the nasal mucosa in the cleft. Now the space of Ernst is the medial pterygoid plate is here. So just medial to that is the space of Ernst. So if you can go into the space of Ernst, you are on bone, and now push the nasal mucosa inward, dissect the nasal mucosa inward, okay, from the freed from the nasopharyngeal part. Now you will find that the nasal mucosa moves substantially. But before you visualize the space of Ernst, there is something you have to do. What?
I'm not sure, sir.
You have to cut the tensor palati, because the tensor palati is occupying that space sitting over the nasal mucosa. You must divide the tensor palati completely along the posterior edge of the hard palate. Only then, following the edge of the hard palate, the periosteal levator will set, and now you will feel the bone. That is the medial pterygoid plate, and that is the space of Ernst from which you separate the nasal mucosa and bring it medially. You understand? If you do not disconnect the tensor palati, you cannot reach the space of Ernst. All right?
Yes.
You have to cut the tensor palati to get access to that. Tensor palati is supplied by what?
Yes, sir.
Tensor palati is supplied by what?
Sir,
nerve?
trigeminal.
Yes. And the others?
Others by, sir, pharyngeal plexus, sir, mostly vagus nerve, sir.
No. 9, 10, 11. Pharyngeal plexus is mostly 9, 10, 11. Okay. And during our time, at least vagus was the 12th nerve. Has it changed? No, na?
No, sir. That's...
All right. So, vagus was 10th. Okay. 9, 10, 11 is the contribution of the pharyngeal plexus. All the muscles of cleft palate are supplied by the constrictor muscles, whether it's a levator or salpingopharyngeus or palatopharyngeus. Everything is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus except the tensor. All right.